In the next couple of lessons, we'll take a look at some of the most powerful shaders under the user data group. These nodes allow us to read and output custom user data. Let's drag in user data RGB, connect it to our node Beauty, and apply the material over the polygon. To read user data, we need to work with the attribute parameter. If, however, this field is left empty, the node will output the default value. So let's give our polygon a default color. There are a couple of ways to use the attribute field. First, you can read some of the built-in object attributes, or you can reference custom user data. One of the most popular object attributes you can read is the display color of an object. To do that, simply enable Use Color and change the display color to green, for example. Then, under the attribute parameter, simply type in display underscore color. This will force the IPR to shade the object based on the display color. If, however, the polygon is placed under a generator like a MoGraph cloner object, its display color will be overwritten by the color parameter set in the Transform tab of the cloner. So, as soon as this is enabled, the polygons will be colorized white. I can change that to purple, for example. On top of that, if an effector is used to further randomize the colors, the display color function will pick that up accordingly and the IPR will update to reflect the new colors. So just to recap, if the random effector is disabled, the IPR and the display color function will fetch the color set under the cloner. If the cloner is disabled, the IPR will render the display color. If no attribute is used, the IPR will render the default value. Next, let's take a look at using the attribute field to read custom user data. First thing we need to do is select the object the material has been assigned to and navigate to user data at user data. Let's give the custom parameter a name, for example my_color. Change the data type to color and set a custom value. Click OK and OK. This will create a new user data tab with a custom myColor parameter inside. To read that in the shading network, simply match the name of the custom attribute in the attribute field. So my_color. And there you go. From that point on, even if the shading network is closed, you can use the custom parameter you made to control the shading of the object. In this lesson, we'll take a look at a practical workflow example. The first thing I would like to do is drag user data RGB in and use that to feed the rNode Beauty port. The attribute field will read the display color values. The IPR, as you can see, keeps rendering black, and the reason is that the display color of the polygon is disabled by default. Additionally, the polygon had been made a child of a MoGraph cloner object, which is overwriting the display color value. For this example, I will change that to black and use a plane effector to colorize the clones white. This will allow us to use the Follow tab to fine-tune the distribution of values. Let's change the shape to source and drag in an emitter, which is simply spitting particles in the direction of the geometry. If I play the IPR, you can see the effect it has on the render. Now that we have this black and white data, navigate to Math and drag in a compare node. The shader allows us to compare the output of user data to a value of 0. In other words, if user data is delivering black, compare will output true or 1. And if user data is delivering white, compare will output 0 or false. With that setup in place, scroll down to Utility and drag in a switch node. This shader allows us to switch between 20 different inputs based on an index value. So if input 0 is red, input 1 is green, and input 2 is blue, index 0 will give us red, index 1 will give us green, index 2 will give us blue, and so on. Instead of manually feeding the index parameter, let's use the output of the compare shader. Let's play the IPR. Next, let's reset the input fields back to black and drag in another user data node. This one will be used to reference the custom parameter we created under the user data tab. So under attribute, type in my_color and feed that as input 1 of the switch node. Navigate to Math once again and drag in a complement shader. Let's invert the value of the user data RGB node and use that as input 0. Let's play the IPR once again. Now, instead of using flat blue color, I would like to create something a bit more interesting. That's why I will use an image shader, which will help me bring in the R-Node logo. I will use that as the mix amount of a mix shader. So connect the image to the mix parameter, connect the myColor custom parameter as input 1, and its inverted version as input 2. Let's connect that to R-Node Beauty and take a look at the result. Finally, take this data and channel it as input 2 of the switch node. If I now render the IPR, you can see the result we have. Now, even if the shading network is closed, I can control the colorization of the whole setup by simply changing the myColor custom parameter.